Okay, welcome everyone. Today is session 63. We are on chapter 4. So let's get started. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Kratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Vridavarshini Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayini Ambatvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostu te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamayah Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaya Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetamritaduhe Namaha Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyaha Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So we are studying the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and we saw in the first 8 verses of this particular chapter about how Lord Krishna glorifies Bhagavad Gita as a teaching of the Vedas itself. And he also points out that, he is really the author of the Vedas, and he is also the author of Bhagavad Gita itself. Now, why is he saying that? Because at the time of Arjuna's sting, if Arjuna had to go through such amount of dejection and how he was taking so much of ownership upon himself, clearly this showed that, the significance or the essence of the Vedas had kind of lost its value to some extent. So Bhagavan had to come and teach Arjuna again this glory of this knowledge itself. And he does this first, of course, by being this greatest friend of Arjuna. And then he transitions himself now to show his, his lordship, about how he is that Lord who is given this knowledge. And you see various examples here in this chapter about how, he shows that this knowledge is most certainly have to be believed in. Most certainly we have to have faith, because this knowledge has been passed on through generations. Great Mahatmas, great Rajas have really benefited from this knowledge. So in a sense, he's trying to show that even with this avatar that he has taken, this is enough for Arjuna to seek liberation. So even if he recognizes who really this Lord is, this absolute creator of this universe, that is enough for him to attain this liberation. As a reminder, in the 2nd chapter and even in the 3rd chapter, he had pointed out, how self-realization is moksha. And here he shows that even realization of who Krishna is and how he is the author of the Vedas and how he is the creator, even that can lead to liberation. So that is what we have seen so far. We finished the 14th chapter, 14th shloka, that is, and we are moving on to 15th, 16th, and possibly and 15th, 14th, 15th, and 16th. We will be going up to there. 13th was the shloka on the 4-caste system. So in reflection time today, I just wanted to bring one thought that Meena had shared in WhatsApp, which is, do we really need the caste system? You know, we are good the way we are. You know, we don't need all these divisions. Why do we even need the caste system? Any thoughts on this? Do we need it or do we don't need it? What do you think?
Correct question.
Okay. I mean, in a sense, in US, we don't really see a caste system, right? We don't, everyone is the same. We are probably distinguished only by the colors, I guess. That is what Varna actually means. Varna means color. So there is a different kind of a caste system. So I guess the real answer here is we don't need the caste system. That is true. But if you look at anything and everything we do, we psychologically, you know, put ourselves in these boxes. And for the sake of practical reasons also, we actually box different people based upon the skills. So here, clearly, if you recognize that based upon the skills and based upon the texture of the mind, you know, when we want some work to be done, we automatically make these divisions. So the divisions are very temporary and it needs to be taken for the essence of just the gunas and the karma part of it. In that sense, a caste system is okay, but everything else by birth and all that, certainly we have to think about it seriously. Is this really worth it? So with that, we'll just chant the 3 to 13 shlokas because we are going to review the 14th today. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha Atha Chaturto Dhyayah Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Sa evayam maya tedhya yogah proktah puratanaha bhaktosi me sakha cheti rahasyam hyetaduttamam. Arjuna uvacha aparam bhavato janma param janma vivasvataha kathame tadvijaniyam tvamadau proktavaniti. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava charjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam vetaf parantapa ajopi sanna vyayatma bhutanam ishvaropi san prakritim swamadhisthaya sambhavam yatma mayaya yada yada hi dharmasya glanir-bhavati bharata abhyutthanam-adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti sorjuna vitaraga bhaya krodhaha manmaya mamupashritaha bahavo jnana tapasa puta madbhavamagataha ye yatha mam prapadyante tamstathaiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanuvartante manushyaः partha sarvashah kankshantah karmanam siddhim yajanta iha devataah kshipram himanushe loke siddhir bhavati karmaja Chatur Varnyam Maya Srishtam Gunakarma Vibhagashaha Tasya Kartaram Abhimam Vidya Kartaram Avyayam. So we finished with this shloka, and in the very last line, we see that, Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna. So here, as I mentioned in the beginning of the chapter, when we started, we said about how, Arjuna is now transitioning to see how Lord Krishna is not just his friend, but actually more than his friend. So this is the Lord himself. But I wanted to point out one more interesting aspect here. In this last line, when he says, Tasya kartaram apimam vidhi kartaram vidhi akartaram avyayam. So there is this aspect where Lord Krishna is saying that at the end of the day, he is that absolute self, that absolute Brahman. So it is through that Brahman who is essentially forgetting his self, who, forgetting himself through this power of Maya, has come to project all this entire world. And in this entire world, actually, you have, you have things which are active, things which are inactive, things which actually expresses itself as unactivity, activity, and inactivity. The reason I'm saying this, I'm setting ourselves up for the shlokas which are going to come about karma, akarma, and vikarma, So it is actually through these channels that Lord Krishna is really, expressing himself. All these agitations that we see in our mind and everything is, in a sense, nothing but at the macroscopic level where the world has been projected. So as an example, I just put these two examples. So, in and through this ocean and these waves, right, we see actually it is nothing but the ocean. The ocean is the one which is really seen in the form of the waves, the big waves, the small waves, the froth, the foam, and everything. But do we even say it's the ocean? We just say it is the waves, but it is actually the ocean expressing itself in the form of the waves, right? The ocean by itself actually doesn't do much, but the expression of the ocean is seen in the form of these waves. So too, Lord Krishna is trying to show here, Tasya kartaram apimam vidhi akartaram avyayam. As such, Lord, the absolute self of the Lord is really not doing anything itself. It is a non-doer. But it is, that is the akartaram, but you see the manifestation of that form in the form of the waves and everything. So too here, if you look at gold and the ornaments, just a biscuit of gold or gold in the form of molten gold is of no use to us, right? But when the gold is shown in the form of the ornaments, immediately we are able to relate to it. But in a sense, in and through every ornament, it is actually nothing but the gold. So that is the absolute self of the Lord that is being expressed. At the absolute self, there is no movement. There is nothing. So that is the akartaram. And that is what we will see as unaction, which is coming up very soon in shlokas 16, actually. So another way to look at this is, where he says, being a non-doer, I do things. So we have all experienced this example. We are sitting in a bus and we are actually not doing anything at all, right? But what do? We have reached wherever we wanted to go. Or, we're taking a train in Ann Arbor. We do this all the time, right? But to go to Chicago, sometimes it's easy just to take a train to Chicago. All I do is I'm just sitting on the train, and the next thing I know, within about 3-4 hours, I'm already in Chicago. So we did not do anything, but somehow the train took us. I might say, no, I just sat, but I reached there. So just as an example, I wanted to give you this, that being a non-doer, yet things do happen, right? Things are accomplished. So too, Krishna is saying that I'm not doing anything myself, but things are just happening. So that's one way to look at this last two lines. I felt I needed to convey this example here. And in Viveka Chudamani, there is a very beautiful shloka here which says, Yasya sannidhi matrena dehendriya manodhyaha vishayeshu swakriyeshu vartante prerita iva. So, again, the Lord is saying that just by the very presence, or in this case, in Viveka Chudamani, it is, a text written by Bhagavan Shankaracharya, right? So he's showing about how that just by the very presence of the Lord, the body, the sense organs, the mind, the intellect, all perform the respective functions, just like servants, and here we attribute so much amount of ownership to our body, the sense organs, the mind, the intellect, everything, saying that these are the ones that is really performing and this is who I am. But in a sense, it is just, yes, sannidhi matrena, just by the very presence, the whole, by the presence of consciousness, the entire mind, everything comes to light, right? So it is that consciousness principle that Lord Krishna is referring to in this shloka. So, we were so focused on the Chaturvaranim Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhakashaha, but the second line is so very important too, and I wanted to point out this idea. So, that shloka, this Chaturvaranim Maya Srishtam, is an important shloka from that point, because here you see Lord Krishna showing his absolute self. He's talking about the absolute self, but he's also showing that when he has to take on the role of a creator, then all these four castes are created. Okay, so just to give that example there. So moving on to 14, what Lord Krishna is trying to do is he's taking that same aspect of that avyayam, so when he says, Tasya kartaram apimam vidhi, know myself that I am not a doer, that is a kartaram, and a avyayam. Avyayam means I am actually, I'm totally unbroken, I'm immutable, I'm just one, So he's trying to show that further on to explain that in the shloka number 14. Where he says, Na karmani namam karmani limpanti, name karma phale spraha, itimam yogi janati karma bir nasabadhyate. Because Arjuna, he would have thought, well, you are immutable, but then you're talking about karma, and you have talked about how karmas really bind people. Now, how come in your case, you are not bound, Why is it? What is the reason for the fact that you are not being bound by the karmas and you're saying that you are immutable? So for that, Krishna is saying here that, well, namam karmani, na, do not, mam, do not, what is that? They do not taint me. What is that? The actions. So any actions that Krishna does. I mean, in Mahabharata, we have seen so many different examples, and there's always so many controversies, right, about how Lord Krishna did this, which is not right, or Lord Krishna was always supporting only Pandavas, and how he played a game and made these things happen. So here he's saying that none of these actions really stain me or taint me or even touch me. They do not. Again, why is that? Because and neither does a fruit of action do I really look forward to. Name karma phale spraha. Spraha. The word spraha is very important because that is how today we live our lives. We are constantly looking at what is in it for me, right? Spriha means that longing that if I do this, I will get it. Any action I do, whether it is at my work or anything, I do things for the sake of a benefit. But here Krishna is saying that these actions, whatever I'm doing, they do not stay me because I have no need for any of the fruits of action. So if that is the first line he's trying to explain to Arjuna here. And he says, in this manner, iti mam, yaha, one who knows me, abhijanati, who knows me this well, for that person also, karmas will not bind him. That's karma bhi nasa badhyate. He who knows me does, such a person is also not bound by actions. Again, very simply put, he seems to, says very simply that, okay, if you know me by this, then it will not affect me. So, but, he says the key thing about the shloka then is karmas will not bind a person when anybody does any actions with absolutely no sense of the fact that I did it. So when does this I really become very prominent? It becomes because when we don't have the sense of a teamwork, right? At our levels, we see that, when I'm working in a team and I'm totally into what I have to do for the sake of the success of the team, then I don't have to worry about it, right? When I have absolutely no attachment for the fact that I did it. So to a large extent, that brings down even our own ego. That is number one. Second thing, there is no stress. I do what I have to do. And this is again ties to the Chaturvarnyam. When I know what my skills are for doing, for example, I go to the temple, Bharatiya temple now has been having so many beautiful programs. I see that, Shivratri was celebrated very well. I mean, even though I'm here, I'm on the Facebook of Bharatiya temple, so I get all this information and I see so much of activity which is being done with so much amount of seva, So when I do with the seva bhava, whether it is putting up some decorations or whether it is doing some malas for the Lord or whether it is cleaning, I do to the best of my skill and I don't even think that I'm doing it. Then what happens is there is no sense of doership at all. There is no even attachment at that point on, how those malas came about. I just do it. It's like that Nike ad, just do it, So that's what he's trying to say here. So when I do this, there is absolutely no longing at all. So there is no kartritva bhava, no bhoktritva bhava. There's no sense of even enjoyership. The enjoyment for me at that moment is just the fact that I'm doing the seva itself. And in third chapter, there were some beautiful shlokas, when he says, ahankaram, the person who thinks he's the ego, right? That was one of the shlokas in third chapter. Ahankara videyatma, shloka, I think around 6 or 7 of third chapter. And then tattva vittu mahabhav guna guneshu vartante iti matvana sajjate. That was another shloka where a person who is highly matured, there, of course, he refers to as wise person. But when a person is really wise, that person recognizes that ultimately in this world of Maya, it is nothing but the gunas. The sense organs are playing with the senses. That is all that is happening there. But the wise person himself or herself is completely away from the whole scene of action. It's just a witness. When we do that, then I don't worry about what is happening, right? It's like, suppose I'm in this baseball field, and my son is out there playing with the other children, and I see that my son is playing okay there, but then somewhere in the further along the field there is another kid which is really struggling to play or whatever. But my focus is so much on the child that I don't even think about what the other child is doing, right? I'm so-called, I'm kind of a witness when it comes to the other child, but when it comes to this child, I'm attached to it, towards my son, right? So, when I'm a witness, I don't worry about what is happening to somebody else. Now, this example is not a very great example, but I wanted to show this idea that Lord Krishna is saying that when you're a witness to things happening to your own self, when you're yourself doing some work and you're not worried about, you're focusing completely using the instruments, you are nimitta matram bhavasan sachin. There's a beautiful shloka which will be coming up later in the 11th chapter, that I'm just nothing but an instrument. When I do that, the karmas don't bind me. I have no sense of a doership. I really don't have a sense of ownership. So this is what he's trying to show in this. He's trying to remind Arjuna. So Namam, when we do such a thing, then that actions, they do not touch me. They do not bind me at all. And just an the example that I have here is that of the sun, which is being reflected in this sort of a muddy water, the sandy water in a beach, this is to explain the second two, the third and the fourth line, itimam yaha abhijanati. So when I know that, first of all is I'm just a witness to the actions, but when a person recognizes Lord Krishna in that sense, itimam yaha abhijanat, yaha, that person who recognizes Krishna in that sense, for such a person too, then the karmas don't bind him. Now, let's discuss this a little further here. You see this image here, which is reflected of the sun in the water, right? Now, if this reflected sun, this reflected sun here is depending upon how the waves go here, the sun is also very shaky, right? Now, if this sun recognizes itself as this reflected sun, thinks that, I'm getting shaken by all this, then obviously it is, it goes through all the waves, but tribulations, all this ups and downs, right? But if it recognizes that I'm that sun, I'm that sun, this is what I see here is just a reflection, then there is no difference at all, right? So too, what Krishna is trying to show here is that as long as I think of myself as being an independent person, then I'm bound by this world and I get bound by all these actions that I do and I get affected by it. But if I recognize myself as that Lord himself, then even I will not be bound by any of these karmas. So again, if you read the shloka by itself, this thing doesn't come across, right? Because Arjuna is just asking Krishna, karmas are supposed to bind, and here you are doing so much. You say you're the creator of this Chaturvaranyam, and you are the one who is doing this dharma samstapana. How come it does not bind you, right? So that's what was the question. So for that, you see how Lord Krishna is trying to show that, karmas don't bind, because in the case of Krishna, he doesn't have a sense of doership or enjoyership. And in this example of the sun in the reflection, he's trying to show that, if you recognize yourself also as me alone, instead of thinking about this reflected sun, then you also are not bound by any actions. That's the shloka. That's the meaning of this whole shloka here. So, iti mam yaha abhijanati karma bihi nasabhadyate. Geeta, you have a question?
I'm just thinking it over. I'm just...
Yeah. So the whole idea is Lord Krishna is taking us, you see how he's taking step by step. Earlier he brought Arjuna to tell him that, as a friend, and then as the Lord with a form. And here he is taking him to the level where he's trying to show that, hey, Arjuna, think of you as my own self. Okay? If you recognize me as that, then you are not going to be bound by any of these actions. The reflected sun. So here we are nothing but we are that absolute Brahman, but we tend to look at ourselves as this individual. But because we are this individual, we get thrown up and down by all these waves, and these waves make us think that we are separate, but in reality, we are not. So when we do any karmas and we attribute a certain level of doership that I did it, then what happens is, then there is a sense of expectation from that work, right? I gave this example of doing, say, a mala in the temple. When I make these malas and I say, I did this mala, then the minute I say I did this mala, then I have this expectation that people have to say, oh, look how beautiful it is, And when I have that sense of expectation, then there is a sense of the not only doership, but also this enjoyership, which is I'm enjoying the fruits of what I did. Krishna is saying, don't even think that you are the one who's doing it. Think that you are that absolute consciousness. You are that Lord. So when you do that, you're not really bound by any of your karmas. Nothing binds you. And because of that, you're not born again. You are liberated from the samsara. That's the point he's coming to. And I'll just finish with this one more point, and I'll, if you have a question here, we'll talk about this for the shloka. So the word abhijanati is very powerfully used, and this only Sanskrit can do it, The word basically means that janati means knowing it. But abhijanati means without even a trace of a doubt. There should be absolutely no trace of a doubt in this aspect of knowing. And what is that knowing? That knowing is that Lord Krishna is me, myself. That Bhagavan Swarupa is my own Swarupa. If I recognize that much, then I'm totally free. Even I have no karmas. None of whatever I do in the world, nothing is going to bind me. I'm totally free of any vyavahar. That is the level where he's taking this word abhijanati. So typically, when I say that I know something, like for example, when I say I know this phone, I know this phone means I see it, I recognize it and everything. But do I say the phone is me? I don't say this phone is me, I say the phone is mine. So Lord Krishna is taking us to the level of, if I totally recognize that Lord is me, myself, and what is there for me to be born or anything? Because I'm complete. I'm total happiness. Today, I do a lot of these things because I'm looking for the small, small flickers of joy. Somebody gives me a gulab jamun or something, I get joy out of it, and I keep going only for that. But if I recognize I'm that happiness, I don't need anything at all, right? So abhijanati is such a beautiful word in that sense, is when I know that I am myself, I am that consciousness, and that consciousness is Satchit Ananda, then I don't have anything else that I need to look forward in this world. And that is that level of knowing that he's asking us to go to. So moving on to Shloka 15, now we see, Lord Krishna is saying that, since I'm not a doer and I have no longing for any of these desires, I want to tell you, Arjuna, that it's not just me that I'm telling, it's not just me, but even there is a lot of references in the literature. Many people have practiced this, and they have achieved where they have achieved greatness, or they've achieved liberation. So that is what I'm trying to tell you. And you see how Krishna is, from time to time again, he keeps reminding Arjuna about this point, that this knowledge that I'm giving has been there. And so again, in this next shloka, that is what he's trying to say, that I'll chant the shloka. Evam jnatva kritam karma, evam jnatva kritam karma, purvairapi mumukshubhihi, purvairapi mumukshubhihi, kuru karmaiva tasmatvam, kuru karmaiva tasmatvam, purvaih purvataram kritam, purvaih purvataram kritam, evam jnatva kritam karma, purvairapi mumukshubhihi, kuru karmaiva tasmatvam, purvaih purvataram kritam. So he's saying, evam, thus, or in this manner, jnatva, jnatva, this is the twa pratyaya, which we did in Sanskrit. I don't know how many people remember this. We did this. So jnatva, so having known this particular karma, this science, jnatva, kritam, actions were done. So people perform these actions. So this knowledge, again, the Vedas are eternal, right? So these actions were done by purvaihi in the past, api mumukshubhihi, that is seekers of knowledge, seekers of that absolute freedom from all this bandha, which he talks about in the previous shloka. So having known the science, kritam karma purvaihi api mumukshubhihi. So ancient seekers, they had known all this. So if they have done, Arjuna, what is your problem? Why don't you also do it? Kuru. Therefore, kuru, you do those karmas. Eva tasmat tvam. You, the tvam means you. Eva, you also. Therefore, tasmat. Therefore, you should do it. Purvaihi purvataram kritam. So just like in the previous thing, you also do it. There should be no reason why you should not do it, because this is the one method, Arjuna, because you are a warrior, you belong to the Kshatriya class, and you have a big duty to fulfill here. So why don't you also just perform this karma, because that is the only way that is going to purify you, and it is going to take you further towards liberation. So that is the essence of the shloka. Not much to be said except to bring to Arjuna's attention that what Krishna is saying is not, again, he's not speaking from his hat. It's a time-tested technique, time-proven technique. And clearly there is a method and value to it. So he's just telling Arjuna, previous people have done it, so you also do it. So any questions so far before we go to the next major topic, which is so far, we see Krishna, he has talked about how he is not a doer. So without being a doer, he's still doing a lot of actions. So he's a karta and he's a karta. So action and inaction, unaction, that you might say. So these two things we have seen. So because this whole thing is all about karma, and karma is such an important topic for all of us because we are all doing a lot of karma. You see that Arjuna is going to want to know, what do you mean by this non-doership, doership, and all that? He wants more answers. So before we go to that, any thoughts so far? Any questions? Because we touched upon some very deep topics here about how Krishna is saying that he's a not-doer, etc. Yeah, Gita?
I'm not sure whether I'm asking it right. In the previous sloka, you said, whatever, give the fruits of actions to the Lord, right? Whatever it is. So isn't it our mental thought it cannot be just the mental, we have to mean it and say it. We can say, oh, this belongs to the God, this is, so isn't mental, we have to adjust our mentality for this.
It is only at the mind level. Ultimately, it is only at the mind level. In the beginning, I would say, like, for example, for children, right? For children don't understand that I'm doing it for the Lord. Unless we give them those beautiful stories of Gopala and all that, in the forest. If you remember that story about how this child, goes to the forest, to school. I mean, he has to pass a forest. So his mother would say that, think that Krishna is always with you when you're going in the forest, and then he's there to protect you. And, we say the stories to children, but beyond that, children cannot grasp it. So children start doing the actions of going to the temple and all that. But so in that sense, doing physically is needed in order for us to bring about a habit. But later, when we become an adult, when we are capable of understanding our action, at that point in time, through Bhagavad Gita and through many of these texts, we have to understand what that action really means. Why am I doing that action? That action is done at the mental level, because it's only at the mental level that I can be purified. So in order to purify a mind, I'm doing those actions. You're muted. You're muted.
Okay. We can keep saying within ourselves, we can say, oh, it belongs to the God, it belongs to the God. But we have to really feel it in order to say it, right? Even at the mental level.
And this is why the philosophy is so very important. And that's why Bhagavad Gita, being the philosophy, Lord Krishna is really explaining the philosophy of karma. That feeling can happen only when I truly get it. I get it that this world is nothing but the Lord. In everything there is Lord. Lord is there in everything. Only when I have that bhava, then I'll be able to do it. But until then, when I keep doing it, that is also good, because at least I'm doing a good thing. I'm not doing something harmful.
Slowly, it may become a habit. Will become.
Yes.
It may happen one day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Amlan, anything you want to add or?
Yeah, I think theoretically knowing this is very easy. Like Gitaji is trying to say, we even though we know it, or maybe you're practicing it is difficult to feel that real feeling like that, right? I think solution for that is only meditation.
But prior to that, it is Balavihar for sure. Because in Balavihar, through the curriculum and everything that we have laid out, right? In the beginning, we start off with just mechanically doing. So, at the
Yeah.
level of a child, it is a mechanical doing. But
Yeah.
then by 5th grade, 6th grade, you expose them to books like Hindu culture. And then further on, when you expose them to these books like self-unfoldment, then it becomes that knowledge comes in. Yeah.
Yeah. Knowledge, some amount of knowledge, and then probably practice of meditation, and then knowledge together. I think it will help to understand a little better. Otherwise, it is theoretically knowing is going to be always that feeling. Yeah, I know it, but I don't feel it. that
Exactly.
feeling is going to be always there.
Exactly. Yeah. So even meditation, we have to be careful. And we have so many apps right now. And in the apps, they may ask you, okay, close your eyes. I'm not putting down the apps by any means. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, when we go through something mechanical, even as mechanical as, closing my eyes, sitting down, to that extent, I might feel the peace. But later, if I don't know why I'm doing it, it won't stick for a long time. So having the knowledge is very, very important.
Yeah. So that's why the knowledge support is required.
Yes.
Without knowledge, meditation is not going to be successful. So knowledge, the theoretical knowledge, and then practice of meditation, both probably will help together.
Correct. Exactly.
I have to say something on this. Like, in Tamil, Sunitha ji, we say our Yamandri Voranavum Asayadu. What is that? If we keep saying that and think about it over and over and over and over and over and over again and again, every minute, every second of our life. I don't know. Voranum Asayadu, that I know. So it means that without me, there's nothing in this world that's happening. So that's what it's in Tamil. When I recollect, I'll let you know. But if we keep thinking every second and every moment in our life, maybe during our last days, maybe we'll get maybe 0.some% of it. That's what I feel.
Yamindri means without
Avanindri.
God, even an atom doesn't move.
Avanandri Oranu Masayadu.
Yes. Avan is God there.
Yes.
Without God,
That's
nothing can move.
Yes. So I think if we keep saying and think every moment, every second in our life, probably, maybe, if we are lucky, we will think about it during our last days of our life. That's what it's my personal feeling. I think so.
Yes. That is absolutely the truth. Which is, if Krishna is there with me all the time, and
Yes. Exactly.
then what do I have to fear, right? If I totally have that faith.
Yes. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this next, Amma, you wanted to say something?
No, there the Yam means God. Without God, nothing, even an atom cannot move.
Correct.
That is the meaning of that line. So what
Yeah.
they are saying is that
Yes,
God
exactly.
is there in everything.
In Tamil, we say Avanandri Voranu Masayadu. That's what it is. So Avan means it's God.
It's God, yeah.
So moving on to the next set of verses, this is the next major topic actually. The Chaturvarnyam was a major topic. The next topic is about action and inaction, because Krishna says that he is a karta and an akarta. Naturally anyone would be confused, right? What do you mean by that term? So this is why Lord Krishna goes even further and he talks about not only what he means by action, what he means by inaction, that is not doing anything when you're supposed to do something, and unaction, which is you're not doing something, but yet there is a lot of action in there. Okay, so 3 things that he's going to be talking about in this shloka number 16. So let's see what that is. Here, where is my thing? Yeah. So, kim karma karmeti, kim karma karmeti, kavayopyatra mohitaha, kavayopyatra mohitaha, tatte karma pravakshyami, tatte karma pravakshyami, yajñatva mokshase shubhat, yajñatva mokshase ashubhat. So this is very important to remember. Here it is actually ashubhat. But then you see this avagraha. When it is avagraha, you actually automatically pronounce it as moksha se shubhat. You actually extend that, but it's better to say it as moksha se ashubhat, because the word, it is not shubhat. Shubha means good. Here it is ashubhat. Moksha se shubhat. Kim karma karmeti, kavayopyatra mohitaha, tatte karma pravakshyami, yajñatva moksha se shubhat. So he's saying, kim karma. What is karma? Kim akarma. What is akarma, or what is inaction? Iti kavayaha. Kavayaha means, kavi basically means a poet, right? But kavayaha, the ancient seers were also called as poets. So kavayaha iti kavayaha, api. Api means they also, atra, in this regard, or with regard to this, they were deluded. They were also confused, So, kim karma, kim akarma, iti kavayaha, api atra mohita, even great seers, they were also confused. Tatte karma pravakshyami, so I shall teach you, therefore, I shall teach you that action. What do we mean by action? Which is very interesting, isn't it? I mean, we just do things. We don't realize that, what we are doing, is it really an action, or is it an inaction, or is it a non-action? How it's, I keep thinking about that, what is that wheel? I forget what the name is. We are constantly just in this big machine doing things, we are just running around all the time, and we're saying, I'm doing so much of action, I'm so busy. But what are we really doing, So he's saying, even in this aspect of what is action, even great seers are totally deluded. And here, I remember Guruji's one joke, he talks about how, so there was this guy, a villager, and this happens long time ago, where this villager, he goes to the shop to buy some oil. And those days, they didn't have this kind of plastic cans, or, how we get in Costco or something, this big plastic jar of, you can get 1 gallon of oil or something. This is cooking oil. And he forgot to take something with him forgot to take a vessel with him to buy the oil. Those days, they used to take a vessel, and people would just give 100 milliliters of oil or something, they'd bring back in this vessel from the home. So then the villager said, okay, I'll give you in this paper cup. So you can take this oil. So this villager, then takes the paper cup of oil and he puts it on his head and he starts walking. And as he's walking, he's thinking to himself, Okay, so what is holding this oil? Is it the cup which is holding the oil down so that the cup, it won't fly out from the breeze? Or is it the oil which is holding the cup down? You know, and he's like thinking about all these things, and or is it my head which is holding that cup of oil? I mean, you would think, what is the big deal about this? After all, it's just a cup of oil on a cup, which you're putting it on your head and you're going, right? So that's how complicated this action word is, We think it is just a simple thing of taking this oil on a head and going, but this is much more complicated than that. So we'll see what is that complication about whole action next week with the shloka 16 and 17. We'll do both the shlokas next week, which really, I'll probably have some diagrams and some lot of examples. And if you can think about it too, you can think about this, what is action, what is inaction, and what is unaction. Okay. So I hope, how is the daylight saving times going? Was this too late for you today? Today is like, actually it is 10:30 or something, or no?
It is early for us. It's 9:30 now.
It's 9:30, yeah.
No, it is 9:30, but if it was not daylight savings.
8:30.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
So
8:30. Sorry.
8:30. Okay, 8:30.
Okay.
Okay. So I wasn't sure if, you would have, I didn't do my
We spring ahead.
Spring ahead. Okay.
Fall we go back.
Yeah, fall back.
But they're
and
trying
spring.
to pass a law saying they're not going to do this anymore. So next year, by fall of next year, there won't be any time change.
All
Once we
right.
go to the daylight savings, we'll stay in daylight savings. That's what the Senate has approved, both the Republicans and Democrats.
So the senators are mohitaha. It says you're deluded. So they're deluded. They want to change that.
No, we don't want any more changes. Once we
Won't change hereafter. Yeah.
permanently, it's going to be daylight time savings. Sorry.
The current time will be the permanent time hereafter.
Very good.
Next year, 2023.
Mhm.
Okay, so we will stop here.
I think you have to stop the recording, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I'll stop this with the thing and then. Sarve bhavantu sukinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate. Om shanti shanti shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. So let me stop the recording.